Two things happened in the last 24 hours that just refocused my mind on what it is we are about. We must not doubt ourselves. True. And this government thrives on causing us to doubt ourselves. And too many of our candidates take friendly fire from those who doubt our candidates. When I was 11 years old, the first autobiography I ever read was The Greatest Love of All by Muhammad Ali. When the Jah died on Friday, it caused me to reflect on what I learned as a young child from the lessons of that man, and what I have learned since from him. We call him the Jah because he won the heavyweight title 3 times. Correct. But more people today reflect that his true championship was not in the ring, but was in his preparedness to stand up for what he believed in, irrespective of the consequences. We looked at him and we saw a man who for the last 32 years fought every second of the day to do everything that his brain wanted him to do. And he did not allow the difficulties of his body, the frailty of his body, to weaken his spirit or to weaken his effort. Now when you see these things, and when you see how people fight daily, then those of us who are Barbadians, for whom this country has done so much, to whom this country has been so good, what is the inconvenience that is faced by each of you at the very time when the country needs you most to stand up and be counted and to work to bring back order to this country? There are too many people who know in their gut that what is going on in this country, as John said, something wrong. This is not the Barbados that we know. It's not. And therefore, when I said in Baxter's Road, the problem of the Labour Party now is not the abundance of people who want to offer themselves as candidates, but it is now to make sure that we finish the process and that you go into the communities, not just the candidates, but the members and the supporters, and to cause Barbadians to recognize that if they do not stand up for the country that has been good to them when they needed it most, that this country will not be recognizable in a very short period of time. What inconvenience does it cause us? When I say to you that this party must do things which cost money, and I say to you that make a contribution, because until our state and our government supports political parties, we depend on donations, and there's a cost to democracy. But this party under my leadership will not be beholden to anybody who is seeking to buy influence in government. I have said like Shirley Chisholm that I will be unbought and unlost. I have had to carry the scars well, from in and out, for standing for positions that I feel strongly, because we cannot bring democracy to a country and do not bring democracy to our party. And I'm saying to you tonight that, and I said to Indar, believe you me, as I said to Arthur Holder and to all of the others, I have no sympathy for anyone who does not want to face a nomination process? Because I started in 1989, July, by facing the nomination process. Because the will of the people must be tested. I say to you as well, that this is not about any candidate. It's not about even going up the steps of Parliament in that imagery. It is about representing the people of Barbados and making sure that we can build a new Barbados. My stand is to put people first. I do it every day because I believe that a leader must be prepared to allow persons' voices and how people feel to matter. Because your voices do matter. Your lives do matter. And if the Prime Minister and Edward Buffett were a little more sensitive to the fact that there are Barbadians who are suffering, then you would not get the curious event of Friday, when the Prime Minister, for the first time in years, chooses to pet and dine the media of this country and to speak to issues as if he is a visitor from Antarctica. Speaking like how Santa Claus comes once a year, speaking as if he is an innocent bystander to the events that are unfolding in this country. Well, the lawyers dealt today with him on the issue of bail. Because in case Brenda Stewart has forgotten, and in case Edward Buffett has forgotten, they are members of Parliament. And the first duty of a member of Parliament is to be a lawmaker. So if the Bail Act is not working for you, you cannot be hit for 6. Because he has the additional benefit of Prime Minister of setting the policy priorities of his government. And therefore, he can put the amendment to the Bail Act at the top of the list. But the real problem is that you have put members of the judiciary also in a difficult position, because the changes that are necessary to bring access to justice to ordinary people are not happening. When I left being Attorney General, there was a proposal to revise the 8 magisterial districts. Those districts were set in 1956. And the number of people living in St. Michael and Christchurch and St. Philip has changed significantly. District C now has, you can tell us, responsibility for far more people. You have almost over 40,000 people living in St. Philip alone. And the District C, as presently populated, cannot continue to provide the quality of service to the residents of St. Philip that it would have done 20, 30 years ago when the population base was smaller. The number of cases coming before the magistrate in District C would have grown exponentially. And a man who claims his navel string is buried in this parish has an Attorney General who used to live in this parish. I don't know where he is. But neither of the two of them, I'm not getting to District A, because if I say that they don't care about St. Michael, I'm not getting to District B or any other parish. I am dealing with District C. I am dealing with the parish of St. Philip. I am dealing with a Prime Minister who is Attorney General, who knows the responsibilities of an Attorney General. I am dealing with an Attorney General who represents this constituency in St. Philip South. And I am saying to you that ordinary people in St. Philip South and St. Philip North, in St. Philip West, who have to go before District C, are being frustrated daily. Not to mention the buses part alone, because you're taking 2 buses to hear that your case can't get done. And you have cases taking years. And therefore, because our Constitution talks about reasonable access to justice, you heard Arthur Hole in today's paper talk about a man who does not even have the comfort after 2 years of having the preliminary inquiry. We're talking about the big case before the jury, you know. We're talking about the preliminary inquiry. That has not even been completed after 2 years. So when I told you in the no confidence motion that Barbados is not working for the majority of Barbadians, when I said to the covenant, it is not something that we take delight in because we understand the scale of the job to bring this country back, and it is monumental, and it is going to need every right-thinking and good Barbadian who is prepared to stand up and be counted and to lift this country up again for the benefit of Barbadians. The notion of 2 Barbaduses is not one that I will tolerate. I have spent my life representing people who have been unfair or who have been denied access to justice. And if I get the chance, God willing, it is going to be the first and major priority. Because it happens too often in this country. And what we have seen is a consolidation that carries us back 2-3 centuries ago. When I asked in Parliament, who is running Barbados? I asked it because 50 years ago when our independence was settled, it came upon the achievement by Sir Grantley to give people the right to vote. We couldn't have independence if we didn't have the right to vote. But the 2 actions, the right to vote and the right to determine your destiny, were not intended to be the charter to roll back rights and benefits in this country to a previous century. They weren't intended for that. And when we, as a party, recognized that we were Barbadians first, and that there were things that may have been done by people on the other side that were worthy of support. Many members of the Barbados Labour Party and many members of the Democratic Labour Party before this bunch recognized that continuity was part of the success of this country. Continuity in education, continuity in foreign policy. There were other things that would change, but the core of what we were trying to do in education, both parties agreed to. The core of what we were trying to do in foreign policy, both parties agreed to. The core of what we were trying to do in a number of other areas. There were areas that separated us, of course. And we could therefore, in this country, from this party, use the phrase that Mr. Barr used at the first address to the UN as a badge of honor for all Barbadians, that we would be satellites of none and friends of all. But this Democratic Labour Party under Frondell's Stewart and Adrian Brackett has so reversed it that the only thing that can be misused to describe them when you use that phrase from Mr. Barr is that they have now become satellites of a few and friends of none. It's you. Last night, because you know that I go from church to Fed to school to everything in this country. Because you cannot want to represent people unless you interact with everyone. And last night I left the celebration of one of our premier entertainment groups, Red Boys, and went to support a group of young Barbadian men in St. Michael who have developed a brand called Scrawler down by the IDC where nobody don't live. Nobody in living around the corner to disturb them. Nobody right in town, opposite the sea, next to the port. You didn't even have cruise ships overnighting to disturb them. 3:20 when they got there, shut down. Now these are not rich people. These are ordinary people, in fact, mainly from the speaker's constituency and surrounding areas. And night after night, we hear stories of people who have invested their money, like the vendors who had to throw away produce on Friday, who are told that they must move, who are told that they must shut down. But in this country, all yesterday and day before, cement trucks up and down the street yarding or flatbed trucks. In circumstances where there is formal correspondence from the defense force about the extent to which the operation has nothing now to do with the town plan stop notice, which must be obeyed. But this must be, because I'm not getting into should, because should admits that somebody can ignore the powers in this country. And I ask, therefore, who is running this country? As our Prime Minister to comment on it as if he is an innocent bystander is wrong. It is wrong. And he's not reading the mood of Barbadians who are angry because they see it unfolding before their very eyes. They see the two Barbadoses of which are the Niger side unfolding before the very eyes. When I went to those men who held Scroll Up this morning, men were in tears because they have spent tens of thousands of dollars, and John will tell you it's not a cheap exercise. And if you reduce the opportunity for men to get back a return on their investment, what are you telling them? But we have Stephen Ashley talk again. Oh, we must have a special crop overzone legislation. Eddie, how easy is it for the Attorney General to introduce legislation to allow the persons participating in crop over not to be the subject of bureaucratic tyranny? Every week, those men have to go back and get a liquor license. Every week, they have to be the subject of tyranny or somebody's mercy. To be able to go and to have the opportunity. This is not a fact for them, this is a business. In the same way that cement is a business for others. Correct. This is a business. And I say to you that enough is enough. I'm Barbadian, I told you when we had the war, but I don't know how much different ways to do it. The power of the people is always greater than the people in power. And I have not done it lightly, and I want my candidates and our members of Parliament to listen. Because I am equally conscious that what I'm asking for will apply not just to this government, but must apply to every future government. Because that is the true promise of independence. That the people are free to choose their destiny without upsetting and offsetting the rights of others in a civilized society. And we have to get to this point. But what do we get instead? Charades. Commentary like if you don't belong to Barbados. When I heard the Prime Minister talk about the Auditor General's report, I went back to October 2013. When in St. Philip, the very same Prime Minister announced, it may well have been this very school, announced that he was bringing legislation to repeal the Public Accounts Committee Act. And that legislation not only was introduced into Parliament, but there were members of the government or the committee who tried to stop and frustrate the work of the committee. Because if you recall, the first set of evidence that came out of the committee was heard by the public because it was streamed live on the internet and the newspapers carried it. We have a conflict between what the standing orders say and what the legislation says. It is still my belief as a student of law, that standing orders can never trump legislation. You have constitution, you have laws, you have subsidiary legislation. But the standing orders are not even that. The standing orders are just rules approved by Parliament for internal process. But the government used their numbers. Obviously, some got nervous because the legislation has never been debated and still finds itself on the order paper. But the time has come for me to update you, because I don't believe in conducting our business in the public. For the last 2 years, we have had over 35 committee meetings of the Public Accounts Committee. There are thousands of pages of evidence, and there are thousands of pages of documents pertaining to the investigation into the National Housing Corporation and the Ministry of Housing. That process is not yet finished, but we pray and hope that it will finish before the end of this year. And a report will then be submitted to the House of Assembly. But we have had in the interim, hold tight please, because this is serious. There are some people in Barbados who regrettably believe that they are not subject to the will and to the subpoena of a legitimate body created by statute named the Public Accounts Committee. And the Public Accounts Committee has forwarded over 4 or 5 weeks ago, but of course the House is not meeting, a request of the House of Assembly to reflect on the fact that a certain witness whom we have summoned on numerous occasions has refused to turn up and to account for his actions in the National Housing Corporation. There have been all kinds of shenanigans which I will not speak about. But suffice it to say that this Public Accounts Committee, led by myself and with members of the opposition and members of the government, and very few of them turn up, will report to the House of Assembly on the work and activities undertaken with the taxpayers' money in the Ministry of Housing and the National Housing Corporation. And I give you the assurance that this same report that has caused total consternation in the public of Barbados, and for which the Prime Minister can only comment that, the cases must answer, without telling us what he has done to try to frustrate the work of the Public Accounts Committee, which is the watchdog, and follows up on the writings of the Auditor General. We will move on, once that report is filed, to address the fiscal irregularities spoken in the Auditor General's report and the irregularities related to the conduct of ministries and departments and statutory authorities in this country. And let me say to you, for some, it may end up being issues of corruption. For others, there is a complete breakdown of governance in this country. And that breakdown of governance affects whether we have enough money to pay pensions, whether we have enough money to buy goods and services at the hospital, whether we have enough money for these primary schools, or we have to end up relying on parents to bring stuff and teachers to bring stuff to school. Things that we could, with eyes before close our eyes with comfort, and know that work well in this country have been affected because this government has literally, in aid of their political survival and the other interests best known to them, certainly not me, have refused to confront the things that are necessary to make Barbados work. You know, when I said after the last election that Barbados will suffer from the parliamentary majority that it gave this government, people didn't understand what I was saying. But when the government had such a slim majority, it meant that you had a prime minister who refuses to discipline any of his ministers, not because he thinks even that they may have done right or is insensitive to it, but because in disciplining them, they believe that the government will fall. And when you put the welfare and well-being of the political party that constitutes the government over the well-being of the people, then you get the results of what is transpiring in Barbados for the last 3 years. It is clear, clear, clear. And that's what happens in the Auditor General's report. That people ignore rules. That government does not account for money. That you try to pass money on to statutory corporations under the cover of night, like what you did with the National Housing Corporation and others, so you don't have to come to Parliament to approve it. Because if you come to Parliament, your deficit increases. And remember, the reason why you sent home 3,000 people was your deficit and your foreign reserves dropping. Well, this year the deficit higher than last year, and this year the foreign reserves still dropping. And we are still out to sea as a country. And I say to them that if the economy of ordinary people's pockets is not growing, then there can be no growth in the national economy. And when you combine that with the lack of caring, and when you combine that with the tribalism, and I want to pause here on the Attorney General, because never before since 1838, when the Barbados Police Force was established, have we seen the division and the divisiveness in the police force in this country. I know this party has been very responsible. Myself, Dale Marshall, and a few of us, Eddie, have not treated to half the things that we could talk about. Because we believe that you do not destroy institutions, and Eddie can tell you whether it is the Ministry of Education, or whether it is the Royal Barbados Police Force, or whatever else, that we have exercised considerable restraint in this country. Water Authority, all of them. But when you have over 200 people, or almost 200 people, acting in positions as the nation reported, ask yourself this question: why would the Commissioner of Police, the Substantive Commissioner of Police, be on leave on full pay for almost 3 years if he had done something wrong? When a person is sent on leave because they have done something wrong in this country, what happens to their pay? But you all know it better than me. Half pay. So that is the first thing that the Attorney General ought to explain to the public of Barbados. Then he ought to explain why the Police Service Commission continues to take actions. They lost the case with Mr. Cumberbatch 2 weeks ago. And you still have 17 or 18 officers. I spoke about this to St. Philip South in September 2014 at Rice's Pavilion. You remember? It was a small meeting. I cannot believe that this is now June 2016. I spoke about the fact that the officers who had the courage to bring the cases because they were overlooked, they were recommended by the Substantive Commissioner of Police to be promoted. And the Police Service Commission chose to follow the recommendations of the then deputy, who is known to be a full, strong DLP supporter of St. Lucie named Bernie Hines, who is now headed up at the regional security system. This government has put politics at every single corner, in every single appointment, and that is why this country is suffering. I'm not going to mince any words going forward. Because there are some in this party who would say, oh, when Mottley was there, these and these get through. Yes, these and these get through. Because Bajans must get through in the public service of Barbados. I will never support the kind of tribalism that has now forced the police force into the doldrums where they are today. And who suffers but the ordinary people of Barbados. Education, same thing. You take every single senior position in the ministry, and the persons who are there were spokesmen and branch members of the Democratic Labour Party brought in. And then you want to know why is gasoline for gasoline in the Ministry of Education. It's the only thing the ministry knows how to do is quarrel. You must get stressed. Day to day. A minister who quarreling, a chief who quarreling. Harry husbands don't look like the mediator. I hear the mediator. And then he would tell you. And what they have done to the public service, they are trying now to do to the National Union of Public Workers. Now, members of the private sector of Barbados, members of the business community, from the small business to the bigger ones, will tell you how they feel about this government. But it's frightened to come out and talk because they feel the bills won't get paid or they won't get any contracts. And they have children and employees to support. You know it, I know it. But I'm telling you that this Barbados Labour Party will not be intimidated by this government. What you have not said about me does not exist yet. My fact is wrong. My fact is wrong. And the love I have for this country and the people of this country will allow me to understand anything in grace. I understand that if it was easy for a woman to walk this road before, she would have walked it. And I understand and take with humor. Look at St. Lucia. The Prime Minister of Dominica speaks for Kenny Anthony. Nobody says anything. The Minister from the Prime Minister's office in Jamaica goes on Shafte's platform last night. Nobody said anything. I ain't canvas. I ain't walk. I ain't work on the platform. I ain't speak publicly. But my back broad. You understand? And I have done what all good students of politics do. Billy Miller went up and down the Caribbean in the early 70s in opposition. Henry Ford and Breeson John were in St. Kitts when the Organization of Caribbean Bar Associations was formed. When kids reach the level where the rule of law was threatened. Grab the islands from the 1949 Montego Conference, worked all through the islands. And this notion, our political parties have been fluid. Because that's what happens in a region where people are close. So that Sir John Compton has addressed the Barbados Labour Party on 2 occasions. Peggy, you remember? Once in the field shed and then the other time in the Tower lecturing. Do not be distracted. But I understand that there is a movement building in this country. And therefore, the rumors and the lies and the cursing will come faster and quicker and quicker. And for me, I must tell you, it is a sign that we are on the right side. Nobody throws stones at an empty mango tree. So understand that for a few people, what is happening in Barbados is beyond their wildest imagination. They never expected it. They never thought that a Democratic Labour Party, any political party in this country, could so lie prostrate, could so become mum, could so become blind, so as not to defend the public interest. When I heard the Prime Minister speak, he didn't tell us yesterday or Friday that he intends to ensure that the Auditor General's report will spur his government into creating a negotiating team to ensure that the public interest is not compromised, whether it is the Water Authority, whether it is SPRC, whether it is whatever contract the government must negotiate. He didn't tell us that. He didn't tell us that it is the view of his party or his government that if you're going to extend the public money to people, that they must be prepared to go public and to allow others to participate in the bounty and not just a few. The road is a finite road now. We have about 18 months. We will not do our duty to the people of Barbados by idly talking, arguing. All of that may be nice and entertaining, but we have to hit the ground in our communities and spread the word. We have to organize ourselves. And you know, I have asked branches in this party to start work. And I am warning you that I am not going to be speaking for the sake of speaking, because what is at stake is too important to the average Barbadian. And the Barbados Labour Party owes it to the people of Barbados the highest possible duty to rescue this country from this government of bandits and incompetent people. We have a duty to the people. And to that end, in this year, reflect on what we have done. Don't let anybody tell you about the Labour Party. From February, with the preparation for estimates, the parliamentary party and candidates, they will tell you that we have been working. They performed in the estimates and took the debate to the government. In the estimates, pointed out to you that this government was doing a U-turn in relation to its policies, in spite of sending home 3,000 people and in spite of businesses having to close down. We then went and we worked with others because of the call to action given to you on the 75th anniversary. I told you that we will not only work alone, but we will work with all interested groups once the cause is a worthy cause. And we worked with Commission and other lawyers to get the fingerprinting, particularly Eddie Hickson and Wilfred Abrams, to get the fingerprinting nonsense and Dale Marshall. Stop where you would see seek now to take fingerprints from every single Barbadian leaving or entering this country. We got KL stopped. And we are yet to find out at what cost. And let me deal with the nonsense falling from the mouth of a Prime Minister and a former Attorney General. He should be ashamed of himself. Because he knows that even if a single block has not started to be put in here, there's a liability on the part of the government that they have to assess and come for. And he knows that there is a lawyer who has already received almost $1 million for reviewing the KL contracts that were signed in the dark of night. The Prime Minister has not denied. In fact, he admitted on the floor of the House that he was the one that signed the KL contract first. But you know, my face almost dropped. Because this Prime Minister signed this contract 6 months before Sinclair, Lowe, Kelman and Boyce. And all 5 of them signed it before the rest of the cabinet saw it. Is this what you want for a government? And to reinforce the point that you do not have to wait for a block to be laid for a commitment that he is trying to tell you, oh, there's nothing that's happened, there's nothing to worry about. Nonsense. Now I know why people say, but then they claim he was a lawyer for them. But they don't know. I know they will never practice it. Ask him why Hagan had the government of Barbados and the DPMI in court for the contract at the Pierhead. The work at the Pierhead has not started, but they have had the government of Barbados in court for the last 2 years, 3 years, because they perceived that a contractual obligation had been broken. You don't need to have the earth broken to sue for a contract that is broken. We are dealing with educated people in this country. I never say to you, the hour is getting late, Common, and I really came to speak long, but the truth is that I felt we need to speak to you tonight on a number of matters. And I feel the need, because this country is being taken for a ride, and there are too many red herrings, and there are too many distractions. And the one thing that ought to matter to you is that Barbados is not working for the majority of Barbadians, and Barbadians cannot find either jobs nor money to keep alive in a way that they expect to. And that is the core. Now we don't know who is running this country anymore. And when we finish dealing with the fingerprint and KL, there were some who told you, why is the opposition bringing a confidence motion that they can't win? There's with all due respect, that little camera there called CBC don't come to us very regular. And the tape don't get played very regular. But at least they had an obligation to carry it when we brought it to the parliament. And for the first time, people of Barbados got to know the nonsense and the shenanigans and the incompetence and the insensitivity of this government. That they chose not to answer the charges is a matter for them. Quite frankly, we didn't expect them to answer it.